Welcome back to another episode of Broke Up, Not Broken. If you're going through a divorce, don't worry, you're not alone. This is your one-stop shop for mastering your life and your finances throughout the entire divorce process. Today, we're thrilled to have Lara Buelow with us. As a certified coach and professional life designer, Lara is a catalyst for transformation. She specializes in guiding professional women through powerful career transitions, empowering them to become their most effective, fulfilled selves. With a talent for helping clients get unstuck and reignite their passions, Lara infuses her coaching with a contagious zest for life. She firmly believes that joy and purpose should be integral to success, encouraging clients to have more fun, chase their dreams, and rediscover their sense of purpose. Lara's clients uncover not just career clarity, but also a renewed sense of self, equipped to navigate life's twists and turns. So listen, if you're feeling overwhelmed by your divorce or your current station of life, don't be. Lara is here to help us break it down so you can feel confident and prepared by creating a clear picture of not only your financial situation, but how you can tackle some of the personal challenges you might be facing. So grab a cup of coffee or your beverage of choice, buckle up, and let's once again get you personally and financially empowered. Lara, it's so great to have you with us.
Thanks, Jamie. It's really nice to be here.
Well, so tell me more about that lead-in. You do so much stuff with all the people that you work with. Like, tell me more about like the work you do and the people and some of the people that you work with.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I'm just thinking about the conversation we had before we came in. And so I'm like, yeah, it's great to be here. And like, I know that you do so much, and I can only imagine like all the amazing people you've spoken to here and the financial advice that they would give. You know, full disclosure, I'm not divorced and I'm not a financial coach, which I just want to make like super clear right off the bat. I like to be really transparent with folks, but I do a lot of like big picture career and life transition coaching. And, I'm just like all the things fall under that bucket. So I do have a very wide referral network and have worked with a lot of financial coaches, folks going through divorce, new parents. I have 2 kids myself, and I have a husband in medical residency. I think there's a pretty high divorce rate there. So, another niche idea down the road. But I'm also certified in the Designing Your Life content through Stanford University and the Sparketype content through Jonathan Fields of the Good Life Project. So for anybody looking to design a good life, like that's what I'm all about. And I'm about doing it in a fun, accessible way that fits your current lifestyle.
I'm amazed by this work that you do, because there's a lot of divorce coaches out there. There are a lot of self-help people and a lot of people that, licensed marriage family therapists. And we talk to all of them, right? We talk to so many people in this space, but you're one of the few that we've met so far that really just like dive, like what is this life that you want to live? What does that look like? And how can we, with some specificity, help you achieve it? It's phenomenal.
I mean, one of my favorite things about the work that I do and the reason that I became a coach is because I love asking like the big, juicy life questions. Like when I enter a networking event, my plan is always to speak to at least one person and to have like a real conversation with them, because otherwise I can't stomach the amount of networking that I do. So yeah, I mean, and like I told you too, I just wrote a book mostly on answerable questions. It's coming out in mid-August of 2024. And so that is all about like asking life's big questions and figuring out the steps to like find your own authentic answers, which I imagine can be particularly difficult in divorce. My brother is divorced, and it was a bad divorce that continues to be difficult for our family. So I know that like the questions and the issues that arise in those situations, you don't necessarily have like a really clear answer. And you often like, there's this struggle to be like, how do I bring my best self to this scenario and continue to like be my best self in the life that I actually want to live?
I'm sorry to hear that about your brother. I empathize with people that go through these long, enduring, disgusting divorces, right? Like I told you in the lead up to our conversation, I've been since remarried for over 5 years now, and her divorce with her ex-husband was like they could write a book on how it was supposed to be done. Right?
Yeah,
whereas on mine,
okay,
it would be like 10 pages long and very, very simple, because that's exactly what it was. It was just like, that's just exactly how it was. Whereas I was going through my drawer of divorce documents today, and it was, it's like a full file cabinet full of documents and everything else. So mine would be War and Peace, and theirs would be, the Cliff Notes version of how to do it the right way. But thinking about I'll share with you my situation. I have a question on this. In my own divorce, this was 2017, and I was going through, not only was I going through the change of the divorce and all the stuff that brings about, at the same time, I stupidly decided I was going to take a new role on at my former employer. So I wouldn't advise anybody to do that because it was a very, very difficult and stressful time. And I probably wasn't the best performer because of the divorce. So what financial advice do you give to clients who are considering these like major career shifts, especially in the context of an event like a divorce? Like what are some of the things that you would say? What would you have said to me if I was your client at that point?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Great question. Because I think so many people do not consider like the pros and cons and like their financial risk, their own like financial risk levels in those moments, especially when you're really like seeking out like additional stimulation and like something to preoccupy your mind. The work that I often do with clients is around figuring out like what that financial risk tolerance and safety net is. So really like leaning into like, are you familiar with your own finances? What is it that you currently need, right? Like really, I always say that like my ideal client too is someone who's like, they're not gonna just like jump off the cliff, because like if you need a job tomorrow, or if you need like money tomorrow, I would be like, wait, don't do it. And really, and like one of the things that I am like currently living by is like, you need to slow down to speed up. So if I had have been addressing you in that situation, I would have shared that with you and talked about like, what are the pros and cons of accepting this current situation? And is it going to serve you in what you want to step into over the next 2 to 5 years? And then also being like, who are your financial advisors? Like, let's crunch some numbers and really talk about like how that shifts your mindset around the whole situation.
Yeah. Well, that was the challenge that I ran into because I was my own financial advisor at the time and still are, but because that's effectively the line of work that I'm in, right? But my mistake was I was chasing the money. I knew at that point there were a couple things that were happening. I was in a position where I was traveling a lot and I was on an airplane like once or twice a month, and I was in different offices, floating around, training other financial advisors, and it was a weird time, right? And I didn't want to be away from the family too much because I wanted to make sure I was there for the kids. And there was some level of safety and stability and structure there for them. So I figured, okay, well, this other job, not only is it going to pay more, the opportunity, the upside on it is much higher. I also get to be able to stay home. And then I did that. So there was a little bit of chasing the money. There was also a little bit of, which financially was a blessing because that put me in a position where I could start my own company a few years later and go off on my own and do all these great things that I've been able to do over the course of the last few years. But man, that was not the ideal time to do it. It was rough.
Yeah.
It was rough.
Yeah, transitions. I mean, that's the thing too about transitions. I feel like we don't often give ourselves enough credit and like feel the weight of whatever transition we're going through, right? Like the top 3 stressors in life, I believe, are moving, divorce, and like, I think like death in the family or something. Mm-hmm. So, you know, when you think about those things, especially with moving, I feel like people are like very cavalier, but like any career transition, any transition period in your life is going to take up a significant period of time and a ton of energy, right? It's not like you're just going to pick up a new job and be like, this is great. It's like, there's like a whole like months long scenario where you really have to like live into and get used to the whole situation. And if you're juggling a divorce at the same time, one of the top 3 stressors of life, it's like, well, that's a lot.
You mentioned the word safety net earlier. And in the context of financial planning, we always talk about things like having an emergency reserve and things like estate planning and insurance and all the practical things that we think about. What are some other safety nets people need to consider before they're making such a transition?
You know, I'm thinking right now of this resource that I really love. Have you heard of the School of Life out of London?
I have not.
They're amazing. I like highly recommend them because they provide like so much good content on like bite-sized learning pieces. And I always think about them because I feel like, you know, as far as safety nets are concerned and like financial stuff in general, like most of us like never learned any of that in school. And you would think that that would be like a class that you take every year to really set you up for success, like entering adulthood. But of course, like, you know, in this day and age too, they should be teaching us about like what is marriage and what is divorce, because that is also like a major part of modern life and our current legal system. But anyways, that aside, you know, I feel like from a safety net perspective, the way that I would work with somebody is really like walk them get them to walk me through their daily life and start taking bullet points of like, what are your daily needs? Do you have a family? What are their daily needs? Figuring out like, what one person, just figuring out how their specific needs need to be taken care of, and that number is specific to their life, where they live, their family structure, all of the things, and really understand like, okay, how am I going to provide that like as I move through this transition, and make sure that they're in touch with somebody who can help them make the numbers match. And it's something that I talk to people too, like even if it's a simple career transition, divorced or not, right? This idea of like, what are your requirements of this next position? Are you going to be like filling your buckets, right? Like a lot of people think, oh, I'm just going to like quit and go find another job. And it's like, well, sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't, because there's pros and cons to everything. And like, you might end up like depleting a particular bucket of your life that was actually ended up being really important. So making sure that you're getting the piece that's missing alongside your other needs met when you enter into a new situation, and being able to like articulate those things and figure out like, something I talk to a lot of clients about is like, how do you know that the workplace culture in a new place is going to work out for you? So in a divorce situation, be like, let's think about the markers that we'll share with us, like that will get us to know that something is going to be working out in our favor or making us more comfortable. So like thinking about like, what will this look like? What will that feel like in the real world, rather than this like just a word that's sort of, there's lots of fluffy coaching words. I want peace. I want clarity. Like what's that going to look like in a couple months' time? How are we going to make sure that starts to integrate to your life?
One of the things we do with all of our clients, both on the financial planning side, where we do our traditional retirement planning and investments and that type of thing, but also in the divorce financial planning, is we ask them to go through the SMART framework, the SMART goal setting framework for when we are looking at goals and objectives. And one of it's very much in line with what you're talking about, because we want to make sure that we have specific goals. We want to make sure they're measurable. They're aligned with their key stakeholders, that's their kids and their loved ones and so on. Are they measurable? Can we actually measure our progress towards achieving this goal? And is it time bound? How long are we going to take to be able to do this thing? Right. Because I don't think it's enough to just say something to the effect of like, well, once the divorce is settled, I'm going to go buy a house in Miami. Okay, well, right. What color is the house, and how many bedrooms, and how many bathrooms, and how many square feet? And let's really try to be very, very specific about this and make sure that the goals and objectives that we have align with the people that are, if your kids can't stand Florida and they're going to give you a hard time about it the entire time, why would you want to buy a house in Florida, right? So we walk them through this exercise. So it's very, very similar to the work that you do.
Yeah, and just making those things real and like you said, measurable, making them more tangible in your everyday life. So another resource that I can think of that might be really useful for some of your clients is, the SMART is good, but I like to throw a little shade on SMART, because I actually think that the WOOP from framework is like so much more fun. Are you familiar with it?
I am not. I need to hear this.
Yeah, so the WOOP framework is wish, objective or outcome, obstacle, and plan. So, and the reason that I like this framework so much is because it has the obstacle baked in, and most goal setting frameworks like completely ignore the obstacles that like will inevitably come your way, right? Like everybody gets up in the morning or and like is like, oh, I'm too tired to work out, right? Or you wait until the end of the day and you're like, oh, I couldn't possibly, like now I'm hungry or something, I'm going to go home and make dinner. So that in every plan, like something will arise that's going to like thwart you and what you're trying to achieve. And so I just love this one so much because it like marries the wish of your particular goal, right? The outcome into the whole thing. So it kind of puts in, like, it bakes in your why. It bakes in, for my clients, am I allowed to swear?
Of course.
I call it the oh shit plan.
Yeah. It's the contingency planning. That's we have to plan for contingencies, right? I mean, you have to plan for the best, but plan for the worst, but hope for the best, right? And that's it's amazing how like similar, like even when we are very two different lines of work here, but the work that we do as we're walking people through these exercises is focused on similar things, right? You got to be able to make sure that the oh shit plan is in place. And I've seen the situations, and this just happened even last week. I had a client that called that talk about career transition. They've done a gigantic home remodel. They bought a business franchise, and they're stressed out about all the money that's going out and all this other stuff. And we have a plan in place, and we have backstops in place. We've stress tested their situation to the nth degree. And I gave them the permission to do all the things they're doing. And sometimes they just need to be reminded, like, hey, we have a plan. We're in a good spot. There's no reason to email me at 3:00 in the morning because we're good. And some people just need that. Some people just need that assurance, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're lucky to have you. I'm like, those are the benefits of hiring like a coach or whatever. Like, because then you have those people where you're like, I'm freaking out, and it's like, wait, but we made the plan.
Yeah. But a lot of the people that we work with, especially on the divorce side, we do work with a lot of women. The good majority of our clients are women. That doesn't mean that men are not welcome here. They're just, I say this in jest, dudes, but sometimes women are smarter when it comes to some of the stuff, and in this case, that tends to be the case. So, if you're out there, gentlemen, and you need help in this, don't be afraid to reach out for the help, because it's okay not to be John Wayne every day of your life, and it's okay to ask for help. But the problem that we run into a lot is just the cost, right? Divorces are expensive, and life after divorce is never going to be the same as it was while there was a dual income family, or you were a stay-at-home mom and your husband was supporting for the family and so on. Just like things change, right? So I guess I have a two-part question. One being, what you already named a couple of them as far as resources go, but what are some resources that are available to people where they can get the help that they need for life transitions, career transitions, and so on, without breaking the bank? And then let's just start there. You answer that question, then I'll follow up with the second question.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I'll mention 3 to start. I have so many that I'm just in love with, but Ride Free Fearless Money is this woman, Hadassah, here in Denver, Colorado. And she has just so many amazing resources, specifically financial resources on her website, including she released a podcast that is also a ebook that you can buy and then fill out and listen to the podcast at the same time. So very interactive, but her whole thing is let's talk about your financials and come up with a smart plan to really get in control and really be knowledgeable about what your situation is right now and where you want to go, right? And how you're going to get there in between. So Ride Free, Fearless Money, Hadassah, love her, amazing. So the other ones would be the ones that I'm certified in. So Designing Your Life content, and they've got multiple books out now. The latest one being Designing Your New Work Life Post-COVID. And that's one of those, you can buy the book. They have so many exercises in there to help you ask some of these big questions. And their whole philosophy is don't resign, redesign, right? So we don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We don't need to throw away everything we've done, burn the whole house down and rebuild. We need to consider about let's look at what's working and what's not working, and then try and amplify what's working and reduce what's not working. So especially in those moments where we want something to change really fast, and really what we need to do is slow down so that whatever we start changing moving forward works. And then my final one would be the Sparketype assessment online, which is a free assessment. And I think they're launching a DIY course that you can do online to help you use your Sparketype results in order to facilitate a career change. And then of course you can always hire a coach like me to facilitate that work too, for additional accountability, deeper diving into all the content. Yeah. But those are the ones where I'm just those are all amazing. They're going to be game changers if you really follow through on them. And then of course, coaching, right? Hire a coach, get somebody to hold your hand and really hold you accountable to the changes you want to make.
Accountability is the biggest thing, right? I mean, being able to just, set some goals and stick with them. And that's why, personal trainers have the jobs that they do, right? Is their job is hold people accountable. That's kind of the same thing that we do, right? Yeah,
absolutely. The only way I'm getting anything done, the only way I wrote a book over the last 2 years is because I had a coach holding my hand to do it. I almost quit a bajillion times. My 3 and my 5-year-old are sick constantly. My husband is never home. He's always at the hospital. There's just I could never get anywhere if I didn't have a coach and a million people online to do accountability Zooms with.
Yeah. One of the things that this is kind of in the similar vein to my earlier question here, again, a lot of the women that we work with, they've never worked outside the home. They've been homemakers all these years. They've taken care of the kids, and they've done exactly what you're doing, right? Taking care of the 3 and 5-year-old while dad's working, and making sure everybody's getting on the bus on time and getting off the bus, and so on and so forth. And they've never really spent a lot of time focusing on their career and developing skills and so on. And now they're on this cusp of this newfound life where they have to figure out, like, okay, what am I going to do here? I have so many questions around this, but how does someone balance the demands of the new career and starting over after divorce, and then handling things like negotiating a salary and the workplace benefits? And I mean, there's just so much stuff and I can understand why so many women that we work with it's almost like paralysis by analysis, right? Because they just don't know where to go and they don't know what to do, and it freaks them out. So I guess, kind of put yourself in their shoes. What would you say to the people that are listening if they're kind of in that mode right now?
Yeah. I mean, I'll hammer it home with the coaching. I'm just like, oh my God, a coach can help you so much. Again, like, even if it's like, I'm so overwhelmed and just like, crying it out, because it's like, let's just find the bare minimum viable action, right? Like, what's the tiniest next step you can take? And like, somebody's going to be there with you. And then I'm also thinking about, as you mentioned all of that, a couple of additional resources. So for the women out there, the Mom Project, right? That's a online resource for moms specifically who are like looking to re-enter the workforce in a family-friendly way. Glassdoor as well. Like, do your homework. Talk to other employees. Don't believe what the company tells you, right? Interview their employees and see, like, what are people's actual day-to-day lives? Do they actually get like, a flexible schedule, parenting support, like whatever kind of benefits that they might offer? Because America is like really, really bad about that. And that's a whole tangent I will try to avoid going down. And then the last one that I'm thinking about as well is this idea to read Never Split the Difference. I don't know if you've read it, but it's like such an awesome negotiations book. And like, if think you might get divorced, if you are getting divorced, read this book and then use it for your next job too, because it's just like, so useful in every sense of the word.
I feel like I've read that book, but it's been a long time. So I think that's when I need to dust off and get back at, because I've heard more than one person mention that in the last few weeks. So I think that's
Chris Voss,
the vacation reading
the
list.
former FBI negotiator, like great stories, things you can start using on your husband, your kids right away.
I have read it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, that sort of reinvention where it's like, oh my gosh, you have to do a complete pivot it's just going to be hard, right? And like, sometimes it'll be hard in a really great, invigorating way. And sometimes it's going to be really hard in a very overwhelming, potentially emotional way. Just, try and hold space for all of it and like, get people who are going to support you through that transition, right? Support. Get as much of it as you can.
That was literally going to be my next question. Talk to me about the support system that you need to have. One of the things that I found going through my own divorce, actually, I take that back. One of the things I found going through my own divorce was that a lot of people that are out there that can help you through this transition, I had no idea they existed. So I basically went it alone, and I could have used so much more help than I got from other people through my divorce. But that was going to be one of I think I call it creating Team You, right? Like,
yes,
you have your financial person, you have your legal person, you have your emotional person, the therapist, the divorce coach, whomever, to help you through, your people like you to help you through to handle the emotional aspects and the transition that they're going through. And I feel it sounds counterintuitive to hire multiple people to help you navigate this particular situation, but man, I've seen it firsthand when the difference between people that go it alone and try to figure it all on their own, and the people versus the people that have invested the money to get that support, and even support from their loved ones on top of it. It makes the world of difference.
It does. I love this question. Yeah. Like, build your like board of advisors, right? That can like really support you moving forward. It's just going to pay off in dividends. And I have a couple things coming to mind. Like, in my brother's divorce, right? Like, it actually, I mean, I don't know how else to say it. Like, there are good things that come out of tragedy. And I'm sure you have a lot on like to share with me based on this, right? Like, bad things happen. It often brings us together. And it's such a shame that tragedy striking, COVID, for example, amongst others, like often brings people closer together, because that's when we need each other so much. So I think the biggest lesson to take away from that is like, always be grooming your network, be paying attention to your friends. So really paying attention to like, who are the people in my life who accept me with unconditional positive regard, right? And who's going to be my crying shoulder? Who can I call at 3 a.m. if I'm not going to be emailing my coach or my financial advisor? And like, so, and that's reminding me of a book I listened to. I actually like am obsessed with relationship advice books along with business books. But so one of them that I listened to at the end of last year was Man's Guide to Women by the Gottmans as well. They did it in tandem with another psychology couple. But like something that I found absolutely amazing was that if a man is married, whether he's in a good relationship or a bad relationship, whatever those things mean, a woman and being married these are in heterosexual relationships, will add up to like 8 years to a man's life. And if a woman, her longevity and her well-being are actually determined by her social network. Being married in a bad relationship can take years off of her life. So to all the ladies out there, your social network it determines the quality of your life. So do not neglect it. Your friends, your family, those will be the ones who will help you live a long and fulfilling life most of all. So that was an interesting one. Do you know the Gottmans, like
Absolutely.
the Love Lab in Seattle? Yeah. Huge fan.
I'm learning so much. Don't worry, listeners. I'm going to make sure that Lara sends us all these links to all these great resources after we part ways here today. So they'll be in the show notes for you. Don't worry about it. We're going to have a link to her book. We're going to have it all. There's so much good information here. I'm super appreciative of this. And just to piggyback on what you just said there a second ago, and listeners have heard me say this before, the biggest mistake I made in my life was trying to keep family at arm's length during this process. I felt like once I decided I wanted a divorce, first call I made was to multiple divorce attorneys to interview them and find one that I had settled on. And I leaned into him and his support because I didn't understand the legal aspect of things. I figured at that point I was 13 to 14 years into the financial services world work that I do. And I figured, hey, I've kind of got this, right? Like I can't be that complicated. And boy, was I wrong. But number one mistake I made was pushing my family away. And why I did that in a way to protect them. Because I know, I'm here on the West Coast. My entire family's on the East Coast. That's where I was born and raised. I'm out here kind of on an island. And I figured if I could just keep it to myself, if I could just get through it and not involve them in it, we're just going to get beyond this and we're all going to move on. It's going to be kumbaya. Well, that didn't happen at all. I lost some really close family and friends because, my ex-wife was able to dig into them and maintain communications with them and share things with them that were frankly untrue. That because they weren't hearing from me, I didn't get a chance to rebuttal it. So they figured they took it for what it was worth, which was not much, but they tended to believe her versus knowing me as a person all those years. And they sided with her, and I've lost those relationships, which is tragic, but it can happen. And people, that's just, unfortunately, some of this is human nature. And, if you're listening and you feel like, you want to protect your family, I would recommend you bring them in sooner rather than later, let them know what's going on so it's not a surprise, and it'll probably save yourself some headache down the road for sure.
Yeah, that was definitely that. I meant to mention that earlier as well. That was like absolutely my brother's story as well, is that, we didn't hear so much about it in the beginning, but then as things got rougher and rougher, right? Like it made us closer as a family. He began to spend more time on his relationship. So that was sort of one of the gifts that came out of the tragedy of the divorce, was that hearing more from him, getting his side of the story, building a deeper relationship with him through the experience. But I know for a fact that he also like quadrupled his efforts to focus on his friends and the people in his life that were meaningful to him, and reaching out to new friends, because something very similar happened, right? His ex-wife told people all kinds of outrageous things, and he lost a lot of people in his life. And it's just one of those things where it's like, friendship is work. Relationships are work, and you need to put the time and the energy in, and it will come back 100-fold. It is never a waste of your time to invest in the people who are important to you.
Yeah. You never know when you're going to need to lean on them. So take it. I hope whoever's listening to this that needs to hear this message takes it to heart, because I lived it. Sounds like Lara's brother lived it as well. And it's not a fun position to be in. Lara, thank you so much for our talk today and all the great information. And again, I'm going to share all of your links and all the information you gave to us today. So we'll make sure we get the word out on here to all of our listeners. Is there anything I didn't ask that I should have asked, or any parting thoughts you want to leave us with?
I'm really grateful to be here. I think it's so amazing that you're sharing so much of your story with people and helping them find their way through like such a difficult time in anyone's life. And I really appreciate you, giving me an opportunity to plug my book a little bit.
Of course.
So there's a lot of stuff with family and relationships and transitions in there. So yeah, it's great to be here, and I just really appreciate it. Thanks.
All right. Thanks so much. Listeners, thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of Broke Up, Not Broken. I'm your host, Jamie Lima of Allegiant Divorce Solutions. Don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have questions, or if you're in the throes of a divorce, or you're preparing for it and you're just trying to navigate your way through it so you can get it behind you. We provide complimentary conversations every week with people just to help them get a better sense of their case and some of the things that we would want to strategize about and some of the areas we can help with. So don't hesitate to visit the website. All of our contact information is in the show notes. Again, it's allegiantds.com. You can book a call with us there anytime you like. So thanks again for tuning in. Lara, thanks again for being here with us, and we'll chat again soon.
Thanks.